Well, we're going to get started. Welcome. Happy New Year, everybody, to our first LIAFPN event. We encourage everyone, if there's a topic that you would like to hear about coming up, or you have a topic you would like to talk about in front of the group, we welcome anyone to make their contributions. This is a contributory, collaboratory group of people. And today we're very honored and pleased to have Rob Fishman, who's on our board, who's with Sandler Training, kicking off the year, talking about how to call your top relationships and how to kick off 2022. So with that, I know, Rob, you have a well-prepared meeting. I'll let you take it away.
Thank you, Neil and Larry and Lawrence, rest of the group, Teresa, great. I think I'd like to make this interactive just as a quick time check. We've got until 9, is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I'm gonna move rather quickly, but I think because we got a small enough group to do this, I'd like to go around, I'd like to call out your name. If you can put yourself on camera, if you're not, I appreciate it. It'd be great to see your faces. And take 30 seconds or more and tell us who you are and what you do for a living, or the name of your company or firm. Okay, so let's start off, if you wouldn't mind, let's go to Daniel Schulman. Good morning, Daniel.
There we go, off mute now. Good morning and Happy New Year, everybody. So very quickly, Donnie Schulman. I'm a client strategist with BNY Mellon Wealth Management. I work with high net worth individuals, multi-generational families, and endowments and foundations to figure out how best to secure their futures.
Excellent, thank you. Bruce Kletsky, good morning.
Hi, everybody. Good to see
Bruce.
everybody. I'm Bruce Kletsky. I'm the managing director of the FI Group, which is a global tax consultancy. What I do is I help my clients get tax refunds and tax incentives from the government, primarily research and development.
Cool. Okay. So as we do this exercise, folks, and again, I appreciate you keeping it real concise. And again, I tend to talk quickly because I have a lot I want to deliver this morning in content, is start thinking about when you're hearing, for those who don't know each other, is about potential alliances. Bruce Steiner, good morning.
Hi, Rob. I'm Bruce Steiner. I'm a lawyer. I do tax, wills, trusts, and estates. I practice actively in New York, New Jersey, and Florida. I speak and write extensively on planning for IRA benefits. I do a lot of work in GST exemption planning, in state income taxation of trusts. Recently, I've been doing a flurry of private letter ruling requests.
Cool. Thank you very much. Eric Fried, good morning.
Morning, everyone. Happy New Year. Eric Fried, I'm a partner at Janover, medium-sized accounting firm with offices in Garden City and Manhattan. My clients are, for me personally, clients are high net worth individuals and service businesses.
Excellent. Thank you. Hey, Phil Kenyuk, how are you? Good morning.
Good morning. Phil Kenyuk, forensic accountant, business appraiser. I'm a partner over at used to be at Nussbaum. I'm over at Sadie now. Full service accounting firm.
Where are you now?
I've been qualified as expert more than 50 times for business damages and valuation topics.
Thank you very much. Okay, moving on. Bobby Bird.
Good morning, all. My name is Bobby Bird. I'm a vice president, financial advisor with RBC Wealth Management in New York, and service multi-generational clients as well, with an emphasis on surgeons in the medical field. Taking a doctor or surgeon through the whole gamut of investments and the risks that they may kind of face with respect to not being able to meet all of their goals and objectives in life.
Thank you very much. Phil, check the chat for Bruce sent you a message, please. Jacqueline Burns Shannon, good morning.
Good morning. I was referred by Tim Kennedy and I am the owner of a small boutique realty for the last 14 years, and very interested in being with you all this morning and seeing what you have to say.
Outstanding.
Welcome.
Glad to hear. Thank you very much. Bill Tipton, good morning.
Good morning. I'm with POS Solutions in Rockaway. We do point of sale and technology for restaurants mainly.
Okay, got it. Thank you very much. John Redican.
Good morning. I work at Alexandria Capital, which just merged with Hightower Advisors, high net worth and business investment advisory firm.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Jeffrey Rosen. Off camera and muted, not hearing anything. Let's move on. Teresa Garzon, good morning.
Hi, good morning. I work for ISOL. We're a people first technology company. We're the fastest growing HCM payroll company, and #1 rated in workforce management technology for the mid-market. We handle everything in the employee life cycle from hire to retire, and we automate that process through our modules and technology. And we do this with innovative technology and excellent customer service. So
Thank you very much, Teresa.
Thank
Lawrence Schurer.
Yes. Good morning, everyone. Larry Shearer. What I do is I manage a law firm. We specialize in or concentrate in trust and estate, elder law, business succession planning, real estate bank closings, and occasionally litigation in the fields of trust and estate work.
Thank you very much. Larry Bloom.
Yes, hi, good morning, everybody. Happy and healthy New Year. Stay safe, be well. I'm with Bloom Schoen CPAs, and we are advisors to privately controlled companies and entrepreneurial people, concentrations in manufacturing, distribution, service-based industries, and real estate.
Thank you, Larry. And Neil Himmelstein.
Neil Himmelstein, the owner of Main Street Planning Group. We are an independent wholesaler and expert on all things life insurance, disability, long-term care, and fixed annuities.
Excellent. Okay, so I want to put us into this zone of growth zone right now, and I want us to sort of evaluate where we are. And if we're into that growth mode, we're going to be very sort of semi-critical about the job we just did in describing who we are in our business and who we sell to. One of the things I'm going to point out today is about connecting the dots and helping others to come up with and facilitating introductions for you. We know that a client introduction is the top of the food chain. And most of you here, show of hands, who has had a number of referrals given to you by clients, right? They're like, they love you, right? So we know there's the magic dust in that, but I want to take this a step further because now what we're seeing on our end and sort of just, you guys don't know who I am other than this guy, Rob Fishman. I own a sales training and sales leadership consulting firms. In other words, the work I do is in working with sales leaders, business owners, and their teams, really about behavioral change, changing mindset, as well as giving them the techniques for them to be very effective in business development. So Neil asked, and the board asked me to speak today about what I find is one of the most effective ways of new business development, and that is in generating referrals. But there's a lot of misconceptions here and a lot of things that people tend to do incorrectly. What I want to do today is at least get you thinking about what you could do to improve at the top of the year now. I'm not a big fan of New Year's resolutions, never was, never will be, because I believe it's a year-long thing. But we really want to find alternative ways. As a suggestion, if you change your Zoom setting to speaker view, then you will see me when I'm talking because I'm going to be sharing a screen and coming in and out of sharing it. Can you guys see this screen?
Mm-hmm.
All right, so if you put me on speaker view, then you'll be able to see the screen pretty easily. So what I want to have you do today is think if you can come up with 10 referrals in the next 10 days, all right, to really get you focusing about some key tools I'm going to give you that will help you in doing that. And also, as you met everybody in this group today, you'll learn more about the power of strategic alliances. That's number 2 on the all-time hit parade for where referrals come from. Neil, would you agree with me on that one?
100%.
Right? And that your clients love you, and there's a very good chance they're going to come back and give you others. But remember, if you're taking notes today, there's a 20-60-20 rule of referrals. 20-60-20. There are 20% of your clients that will never refer you. It ain't happening. It's not in their DNA. It's just not going to happen. The other 20% love you and are always keeping you top of mind, that they're thinking of you. And there's probably a group of people. For me, Neil's one of those people. He's always thinking, yeah, I thought of you, and here's somebody I'd like you to meet, or somebody I think you should be speaking to. And that's the top 20%. What's fascinating about that is what we call the movable middle, which is that middle 60%. And those are people that are just waiting for you to ask them. So let's dig in a little bit about that. So how important are referrals and introductions to your prospecting plan, and why? Here's what we're seeing on our end as business development experts. This is a hybrid world. Neil, if you think 3 years ago, we'd be meeting somewhere, we'd be shaking hands and up close and personal. But now with what's going on in the world, there's now a mix between hybrid business development, which is what we're doing here, right? I mean, we're here to learn how to do more in our businesses. So how important are referrals, right? You could put down and be the judge of that. We're seeing that anywhere between 80 and 90% of the average person that's in your businesses is relying on a strong referrals process. So what's our strategic vision and goals? What does that look like? So let's get into it a little bit. Here are some of the challenges that we see when it comes to referrals. Now, if we're in that growth mindset this morning, we're going to say to ourselves, how do I get better? Even those that are quite accomplished at it are still looking for the next level. How do I improve? So here are some of the questions we tend to ask ourselves. Well, who do I ask? Right? I don't know. Who should I be asking? When is the right time to ask for introductions, referrals, or to quote Bruce Libman, a good friend of mine, is all about the endorsement, right? How do I ask that we'll get results, right? What's the technique I use? How do I bring it up? How many of us at times feel uncomfortable asking a client for an introduction? It's just not resonating. For some reason, the words just don't come out that easily. Yeah, I mean, it's a natural thing. All right. Well, what is it I want the referrer to do? In other words, to say that would help in facilitating an introduction. So what we're going to do today is really concentrate about all of these. If I can accomplish these in the next 41 minutes or less, I'm going to do my best to do that. So again, I'm going to move quickly. If you have any questions, feel free to raise your hand and interrupt me. But let's reframe it, right? In other words, some people just think, no way, I'm not asking, right? I'm not going to do that, right? Or they may have had a bad experience, or may have found that they've asked people, felt uncomfortable, and nothing ever happened. I want to share with you a philosophical moment here about referrals. We have to learn to take the monkey off the back of the people we're asking. And I'm going to show you how to do that today. We tend to do that. Hey, Neil, is anybody you could think of that you think could use some sales training or some sales development?
Absolutely.
Monkey's on his back, right? So how do we get out of that practice and getting for some self-discovery, helping Neil to connect the dots a little bit more effectively, all right? It is going to require, in some cases, for people to step out of their comfort zone, and we find that results will be there, right? In other words, how do we do it that it appears as if that it's all about them and not us? It's one of the things that we're concerned about is, being and looking as if we're taking from people. I need names. All right. I've worked with a ton of wealth advisory firms over the many years I've been in business, some of them on a national level. And leadership, some of these financial advisory firms says you have to ask for introductions at the end of your initial meeting. And I just question that. And I've had these conversations and debates as we've just begun a relationship. How could I possibly be asking for names of others? But what I could is at least begin the conversation about expectations, and that at some point down the road, we might have a conversation. But certainly I haven't earned the right to do that. Does that make some sense? That's going to come later on. And here's the two types of introductions I'm going to talk about today. Direct. There is absolutely opportunity in the LIAFPN that one of you can do business with another. And that's the direct result of there's a need and somebody who can fulfill it, right? Does it make sense? And that's the most sort of low-hanging fruit here. But the real power of a group like the LIAFPN is the connections between us that lead to other opportunity, the introductions that we can make. For example, Bobby, may I call you out on this one? Okay.
Right there.
So I met
Yes,
Bobby
you may.
Bird.
Yeah.
I met Bobby Bird through Bobby's significant other, Karen Signoraci, who is a member of a group with me, and I just think she's fantastic. And I met, and my wife, we were out last summer hanging out with them, and Bobby and I struck up a conversation. We started talking about business, knowing what each other does, And I said to Bobby, hey, I think you should meet Neil Himmelstein, right? Introduction was made. Bobby joins the group. Bobby, probably the worst mistake you ever made, right?
Absolutely not, Rob.
Okay. So in other words, that's really what we're talking about here, is making introductions to others that we believe could provide value to both. Not necessarily that the next client is awaiting here, but that's the law of 1 + 1 = 3 in the world of referrals. I truly believe in Emerson's law of compensation. Don't know if you guys do, but I truly believe if we make it a habit to be mindful of others and making connections and helping others, for some crazy reason, it finds its way back to us. So what about this year, putting into practice that maybe each and every week, we will endeavor to make maybe 3 to 5 introductions to other people. Maybe it's something we can build into a pattern. In other words, if I could think about, maybe I want to spend Mondays working on the LIAFPN members and saying, you know what, who are 3 members of this group that I know that I could help them in introductions to other strategic partners or to potential clients? And that's the magic of the referrals process. So how do we make this happen? I want to cover a little bit of the sort of the workings behind the scene. What
Hey,
we
Rob,
know,
if I could interrupt just for a second.
of course.
One of the things that I found very helpful, and it's taken me years to cultivate this, is to don't be afraid to ask someone else to introduce you to the person you want to meet. In other words, you may see somebody here in the group, but you really don't know them. But you know that I know them, or Larry Shear knows them, or Tim Kennedy introduced them, or Larry Bloom introduced them, and say, hey, Larry, can you tell me about Eric Fried? Okay, would you give me an introduction? And it's much more powerful when a like-minded person who knows you and knows the other person introduces you. I just wanted to interject because
I
it's
think
taken
it's
me.
a great point. It's a great point. And as usual, Neil, you are 5 steps ahead of me. I don't think I've ever had the opportunity to be 1 step ahead of you, right? That's why he's the leader of this group, because he's.
Well, I mean, I found that very helpful to work that way.
I agree with you. So I will show you a slide that has 5 levels when it comes to connections. In other words, for those of you that are new or considering joining this group, that you're going to know in the beginning, it's like, oh, who do I know? And it begins with Neil's endorsement of other people in the group that he knows, or other people maybe in his profession. That's really what leads to the word endorsement. So thanks for that, Neil. So interactively and effectively, how do I interact with others to make this happen? So that's all on the technique side. If we talk about success here, it's also of doing enough of the right things. In other words, and there's a difference between active and passive referrals. A passive referral is, and it happened last week to me, somebody who was a client of mine thought of someone else and made the introduction. I didn't actively ask for it, but it happens. Anybody ever had that happen? Passively. It just, you end up with an introduction, right? Those are bluebirds. They fly in the window. We love them. But in terms of building a proactive business development plan, I can't really rely on that. I've got to do a little bit more of an outreach. But here's the part that hangs up a bunch of people. It's the stuff that happens between our ears. There are some emotions and feelings that get into this. So that's the conceptual side. I just want to share with you as a business development trainer that there are 2 camps of sales issues that I see. One is technical, and that is really the how to and what to do, say, and what to do at a certain time in the sales process. The conceptual part, it could be messages from childhood, and again, it's not a therapy session, but it's all about the emotions that creep into this. I'm afraid to ask. I'm a little shy. I may be concerned, so I'm just going to hold back. I don't want to muddy the waters of a client relationship. So our mindset sometimes we feel needs to be locked and loaded for us to be able to do a good job here. So what I've learned is that guts and humor is the best way of all. Listen, we know that we are serious about what we do for a living, but at times we can't take ourselves too seriously. I mean, it's okay to poke fun at ourselves. And the amount of mistakes that I've made have been numerous. I will share with you, but also having the guts. We have a 5-second guts rule. And the guts rule really is to exercise 5 minutes of guts a day, 5 seconds at a time. In other words, if I'm sitting with a client and the question comes up is, what's it like to work with me? Again, I'm going to quote my friend Bruce Libman on that. Hey, what's it like to work with me? You know, how's the experience been? What's been the single most important thing I've helped you with? You know, those types of engagement conversations are what lead to conversations about how we might be able to help each other in elevating the relationship. So think of your clients right now, about people that absolutely love you. All right. And again, I'm going to talk about the care model in a couple of minutes, about how to work this referrals process into your care account planning for this year. So building a plan and following it, maybe we want to put it down as a takeaway today that we do want to make 3 to 5 introductions a week, a month. That might be a way for us to proactively look to help others. And that's the formula 1 + 1 = 3. Business gets done because we may be mindful of another that could use an opportunity. Let's work on our technique, the way that we're asking and how we sound. So when do we ask? Let's talk about that. We talk about this in the post-sale. The post-sale is part of the sale or the client engagement where your client says, hey, let's move forward. Let's do this. We've got our engagement letter. We've got our order. You know, business is now done and consummated. But as part of that post-sale is really a little about setting expectations about what's going to happen, but also about the opportunity that at some point, you know, we're going to sit down, and my goal is to exceed expectations, not just meet them. At some point, would you be open, as I help you, to be able to think of others? Again, we haven't earned that yet. At some point, I'm hoping we can do that, right? So I'm putting it out into the future. And if I have a behavior plan, it's going to tell me when to do it, right? So when do I ask? It's up to you to determine when you believe that you want to ask people for introductions. But here's, to Neil's point, the slide I wanted to show you. Let me put myself down here, all right? It starts with the introduction. You're in a brand new group, don't really know anybody, right? But it's got to work up the ladder. And that's where I did the exercise in the beginning about a 30-second commercial. Hey, do we know what each other does? Now we do. For those of you that were bright enough to write down the names and what people do in this group, you now can start to think about connecting the tentacles and the dots about how to help each other. So now I've got to know what you do. Like and respect you, to Neil's point. I'm not going to be referring anybody I don't like, and I'm not going to be referring anybody I don't really respect. Now, the next step is around knowing somebody who has worked with you, and that's where the endorsements kick in. And that's where Neil's point is, where we want to start to play there, because that's where the level of trust goes up, way up. But think about your clients that have personally experienced you in the work that you do. That's where the leverage is really created for the power of introductions on a proactive basis. So if I were you, as a suggestion for this year, is build the relationships. It's what I call blooming where planted. Plant the seeds this year of the connections you have. I can tell you unabashedly that if we're talking about 10 referrals in this group, it can be done. And it's merely by just connecting the dots and getting to know each other a little bit better. Here's the account.
Rob, before you go on, one other thing that I found very helpful that I teach reps to do all the time that I find very successful is engage the family first. So whatever family you're working with, whether you're an attorney working with a family, you're in a CPA, you're working with a client, or you're an insurance salesman, or you're an investment guy, and you're working with the parents, ask about the children, ask about the parents. I call it my 30-60-60-30 plan, but you can call it whatever you want. But at the end of the day, you're here to help that family and engage that family and engage them with that person's plans. And that's how you grow infinitely your base of clients, is by working with that family. And that's how you have intergenerational wealth, and you're the intergenerational advisor on every level by engaging that family.
Great point. There's a wealth advisory firm I work with, and I was advised by this advisory firm that close to $1 billion in assets leaves the firm every year due to a weak generational strategy. So in terms of the family relationships, that there were advisors, for example, who had clients for years and years, and the clients get sick, they pass away, and there wasn't enough of a strong bond to the children. And the children said, well, we're pulling our money out. All right. So to your point is there's a lot of opportunity within that. I want to share the screen. What you see in front of you is literally about the 4 pistons of your business engine. All right. And in other words, that a lot of you may be looking at your model and saying, well, okay, well, I keep clients and I don't really have much attrition. That's great. You want to look at the percentage of how much of your business is recurring revenue. And that's your keep. That's the upper left-hand corner. There are 16 client retention factors, meaning there are 16 ways that you'll lose that client. All right. And there are tools that we have that we use to help people really analyze, are they at risk of losing a client? I think the saying goes, your best client is your competition's best prospect. All right. So litmus testing the relationship is an important part of keeping. Attain, brand new client acquisition. And that's an area where referrals is a very important part of that strategy. In addition to expanding your relationship, expanding opportunities, how many of you have clients now that you know you could be doing more business? Anybody have that? All right. So how do I go about that? What's my strategy? How do I build that into my pipeline? And then finally, who here has ever lost a client? All right. And would like to get them back. All right. So as you can see, there are 4 different models here that we can work with a strategy. But today I'm really focusing on the attain and some expand. So who do I ask? Mutual respect and trust. How many of you have vendors, people that sell to you? There is an enormous opportunity there. If you think about strategic alliances that you're connecting with and people that do business with you, how willing are they going to be if you send an email introducing your vendor to somebody who'd like to make an introduction as an opportunity? Do they feel compelled to take that call? And the answer is undoubtedly yes. So give some thought to that bucket of people that do business with you. Suppliers is what I want to put down. Your networking contacts. This group is a perfect example as we get to know each other. Some of you I know reasonably well, others I don't know that well at all, and would like to get to know you a little bit more as to how I might be able to open up, our business file cabinets, if you will, and make introductions to either partners or potential clients. Alliance partners is the magic. I'm going to talk about that. Former clients in terms of introductions. Are you having new offerings? What does that look like to reach out to them? And also for even giving them introductions and referrals. Think about that for a second. If you're really keeping in touch with clients that are inactive, are there some things that you can do? One of the biggest mistakes I see is when people try to re-engage with old clients is they start off with trying to resell, as opposed to moving in the opposite direction. Hey, I was thinking about you. Here's something that might be helpful for you, right? So think about the opposite way. It will also force engagement, which brings us back into a conversation as to how we began working in the first place. Does that make some sense? So it's all about thinking about all those pistons on the engine. And to Neil's point, at the very bottom, family and friends. So let's talk about your alliances now. Do you have strategic alliances? What I'd like you to do right now is to write down at least 7 types. All right, your clients are going to go on the left side of your paper. All right, we got that. But I want you to write down 7 types of businesses or industries or professions that would be ideal strategic alliances for you. All right, just take a minute and jot them down. See how far you can get. I'm looking for at least 7. There's a little music to make it happen.
Jeopardy music?
Jeopardy music. Okay, first of all, I didn't say good morning to Tim Kennedy. Tim, how are you? Happy New Year.
Good
Nice to
morning.
see you.
How are you?
Doing great, thanks. Okay, so anybody have 7 names? Or it's not names, types of businesses. Neil, go.
CPAs, wealth managers, other insurance professionals, real estate professionals, mortgage specialists, banks, and small businesses.
Okay, Larry Schurer, go.
Yeah, I have a lot of the same names: accountants, lawyers, stockbrokers, insurance agents, real estate brokers, banks, and trust companies.
Excellent. Anybody else want to go? Bill, go ahead. Take yourself off mute.
Web developers, digital marketing, accountants, insurance, payroll, restaurant supply, hospitality groups, restaurants.
Huh. Let's connect after the meeting. Daniel Schulman.
So I have a lot of the same, except, and I'm not sure if anyone thinks differently about this. For attorneys example, I sub the industry. So there are a lot of attorneys, but I like working with, let's say, family office advisors, specifically people that do divorces, estate attorneys, and T&E. So I guess are those separate categories?
Okay, excellent. So for those of you that are coming up with the names of strategic alliances, for all of you that I've heard the names, I've worked with folks in those professions. I've trained them. I've got good relationships with folks that could probably get you into the niche part. And I'm going to talk a little bit more specifically about, we want to get out of that generalist mindset and get more into a specialist mindset. And I'll tell you why in a couple of minutes. Anybody else want to go?
Sure.
Who just said, oh, Phil, go ahead.
I broke out the attorneys by different groups: trust and estate attorneys, corporate attorneys, litigating attorneys, and matrimonial attorneys. And as soon as I heard Dan Schulman mention the matrimonial, I said, yeah, that's right. I need an introduction for Dan. And I'll make that today. Financial planners, business exit and succession planners, other CPAs on the smaller and mid-sized firms, not the larger ones, and individuals in the insurance business.
Excellent. All right, anybody else want to go? Just raise your hand. All right, Bruce, go ahead.
All right. So I guess first and foremost, lawyers, and then accountants and people in the financial world of any sort, whether they're stockbrokers or they're independent, money managers or their life insurance or what have you.
Excellent. Okay. So let me go back here for a second, because I want to point out a couple of things. And actually, to your point, Neil, is when you think about when these names come up, now we didn't get into specific names yet. We got into industries, professions, and types of businesses. That's the beginning of that common bond, and it facilitates the opportunity for an introduction much easier. I wanted to give an example here. Who said something? I just heard it. Okay.
Have a great day.
So
somebody has to put themselves on mute.
Okay. We had a client a number of years ago who sells the machines that put the edges on eyeglass lenses, and they sell them to optometrists and ophthalmology offices. And we trained their sales team. And when they were out in the field, they met up with eyeglass manufacturer reps. And this magical relationship was born because there were a number of the reps that didn't sell to some of the ophthalmology offices that the machine reps were selling to. And they were non-competitive. They were selling to the same customer. In other words, I call that the jealousy net. In other words, I would be jealous of their customer list because that's my customer list too. So it's another way to look at it, that there was a lot of business done because of the eyeglass reps, as well as the folks that were selling the machines. So think about that your alliances are not quite competitive. But I want to share with you one of the dangers that I see. And I mean this with all due respect to, there are some CPAs that are out that are wealth managers as well, and wealth advisors. And there are also some lawyers who decide that they do full service boutique law. In other words, well, yes, and I mean this with due respect. Hey, I do closings. I also do bankruptcy. And at the same time, I do matrimonial work. is going to be harder to refer for some, as opposed to those that are more of the specialty that might do labor and employment law, for example, only. Does that make some sense? Right. So I find that in the legal profession, that is the group when they specify maybe one or two practice areas, the referrals fly like crazy within the legal profession. All right. So how do we ask? Certainly not the way I did before. Hey, Neil, know anybody who needs sales training? Typical response? No, Neil's the only guy who's going to say, yeah, I do, as a matter of fact. But most people would say the following: hey, if I think of somebody, I'll let you know. Does that ever happen to anybody? Yeah, if I think of somebody, I'll let you know. Let me think it over. Monkey on the back, right? So what we want to learn to do is open the mental file cabinet of names and relationships. By opening the names of the file cabinets, even the exercise we just did, where Daniel, Bill, Phil, you guys came up with specific types of businesses, and Neil's already connected the dots. Fair? So that's by opening up the mental file cabinet. So how do we do that? And could we be doing a better job? And maybe we can. I knew a guy that was in the coffee business. He's like, well, who do you know that needs a coffee system? Who do you know needs a coffee system? Right? Well, if I think of somebody, I'll let you know. And he changed his tune by saying, hey, I'm looking for businesses on the Route 110 corridor in Melville. Bang, right? All of a sudden, it was much more specific, and the mental file cabinet opened easier. Connecting the dots of associating a name with an ask is really what I'm looking to do. So in our world, we created an acronym, and I'm going to ask you to do the same today. An acronym is when you meet people for the first time or the second time or third time, and as you develop this relationship, it's going to be, who are you looking to meet? And for us, and our responsibility could be for us to tighten that up a little bit. In other words, if I'm doing some general prompting and people say, hey, Rob, you own a sales training practice, you work with sales leaders, you help their teams make more money by prospecting more effectively and selling, who do you want to meet? Here's my list. This is my acronym. I'm looking for sales and sales leaders, people that do consulting, management consulting, owners of businesses, professionals, and entrepreneurs. You know the people I'm talking about. Those are the ones that get venture capital money, technology companies, for example, and they build these mega structures. They get a lot of money in them. They grow like crazy. And either they sell and retire at the age of 35 with millions of dollars, or they get some really smart people like COOs in there to run their business so they can continue to be entrepreneurial. That's who I talk to. So in your world, see if you can assemble a group of letters that can be your acronym. In other words, it helps you be much more mindful about your intention of who you want to meet. Not necessarily, ideally, that all of your clients are that description, but perhaps some strategic alliances could be part of that as well. Does that make some sense? Again, if I want to package this together this year, it's going to be, what does my ideal client look like? And we're going to talk about that in a minute. And who are some alliances that I can connect with? And how do I communicate that with clarity to someone else to fully get the idea of who I'm looking to talk to? So scope is mine. I don't think I have bad breath. Think about what yours can be. All right, let's move on. So how do I ask? Let's go to the next one. All right, here's more specific prompting. In other words, when I'm asked, who am I looking to meet? I'm big in technology and financial services. Those are the two hot spots, and most of my clients are in those two spaces. All right. So in other words, you may be looking to do specialty. Now, in other words, Larry Bloom, I'm going to pick on you for a second. If you wouldn't mind, what would be the average profile of a small business client that you service?
Average profile. Okay. Number one would be privately controlled, owned by a family. Could be siblings. It could be parent and child. Probably do $3.5 million. Maybe have 5 to 7 employees. It could be, manufacturing, distribution, things like that.
Okay, so is it safe to say that you've done work in the family business area?
Yes, that's primarily what we do, yes.
Primarily. Okay, so you see what just happened now? We just went from generalist to specialist. In other words, that Larry focuses on family businesses, in addition to other clients he's got. Now, who here knows a family business? Just just for shits and giggles. Sorry if I cursed, it's January, right? So some of us, like I know family businesses as well. So it's now implanted in my mind, and thank you, Larry, for bringing that up, that I now know if I need somebody who is a CPA who specializes in family businesses, there's an introduction right there. So that's the idea of more specific prompting. So the ideal client profile is one of your necessary tools. And this is an area where I want you to just check yourself and take some notes on this one. In other words, and by the way, if you guys reach out to me after the meeting, I'll send you the profile and you can do it yourself. I'm happy to help you with that. All right. So the framing statement. I've done this exercise with teams. People struggle here, about what do you do? And even in our 30-second commercial delivery, think about, well, what do we do? Persona, who they are, who are you looking to speak to? In other words, Larry now is putting down in his persona, family-owned businesses, right? Or family-owned businesses between $3 and $5 million in annual revenue, right? So how would I describe them? The business description is now part of that as well. You'll see the business categories too. Now, let me go to the next screen and talk about industry examples for some of you. For some of you, it may not apply, but here's the most important part. What are the potential challenges that they run into as to why they need your help? I'm going to pick on Bobby Bird, for example. Bobby, is it fair to say that if people are worried that they're going to run out of money before they run out of life, would be one of the pains that you help them with? Would it be that they really don't know how much money they're spending each and every month? They don't have a real handle on their expenses?
Right. Yeah, that's
Right.
the crux of what we do as advisors, is giving them peace of mind.
Okay.
And if they don't, then it's putting a plan in place to make sure that they do.
So imagine this now, that Bobby now, and now everybody now knows the issues that are facing people that Bobby helps them with. And if we're able to articulate the issues they may be facing and communicate it in this group, sit back and watch how referrals get tossed around. Because that's now identifying the gap. There's a whole marketing message here. It could be like, Bobby, you could talk about what you do and how you do it. But that's sort of like, that's dealing with, a certain part of my brain. That's the prefrontal cortex. It's like, okay, that's nice. But why people seek you out, why people talk to you, is because these are the issues that people face as to why they want to talk to Bobby. Does that make some sense? I saw some light bulbs go off, right? This is
Hey,
powerful.
Rob, if I could be reflective for a second, for people that are struggling with this, what I would suggest is you write down your 10 best clients and then look at those 10 best clients and see what they all have in common. And that's where you're going to find your next 10 best clients, is find the commonality of the best people you work with and find out what that common thread is, and then focus your attention on getting referrals from those, not only getting referrals from those people with similar minded people or similar types of people, but understand that that's my target market. That's where I'm going to grow from. And Larry Bloom, I've known you for 5 years. It's the first time that you've identified to me where your sweet spot is.
Well, the problem that I have with identifying a sweet spot is, you asked me for an average typical client. I have clients that also do $700 million, $40 million. I also have a client that does 800,000. So I'm all over the lot. Just a general comment to reply to what you just said. My top clients started out as much smaller clients and they grew. So to find somebody at the level where they are now is going to be very difficult for a small firm like myself to obtain these top clients. My top 4 clients are like practice builders, and they don't come around all that often for a small firm like myself. But I got into them when they were a fraction of their size and the fees were a fraction of what they were, 30 years ago, 20 years ago. I'm just now dealing with the second or even third generation in those families.
Can I share?
So
Yeah.
Permission to use a hunting analogy? All right. Due respect to the vegans and vegetarians here. All right. In other words, if I use rabbits, deer, and elephants as an analogy here, or even whales, that Larry, you're right. You may have, your business is predicated on a lot of deer. And that deer is that family-owned business that you've helped to grow. And although you may get more transactional clients, which are the rabbits, that's great. But again, it's not much meat there. So it's going to be a lot of activity and not a lot of generated revenue, but would never take our eye off the ball off those elephants and whales. And I think for any business development plan is never take your eye off those elephants and whales. Because when they come in big. Neil, you with me on that one, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
agreed.
and then, but deer is is bringing your business to the next level. Like Larry, we were talking about that. Larry Schurer, we were talking about that before we let you guys into the meeting today. That's powerful stuff. To your point, no systematic, repeatable process for sales and sales management is the #1 reason people call us. They don't have a process. Sales is a process. It's a system, and people are not aware that it is. So that's where they realize, because it's indicative by them finding they're not getting in front of new opportunities. They're not seeing new revenue. So connecting the dots of the common elements for client acquisition is an important exercise. So Neil, thanks for that.
Hey, Rob, I want to just add something to a thought to Larry very quickly.
Sure.
So something, I'm not sure if anyone else does this, but to Larry's point, I work with different client segments, and me specifically, I have the high net worth families on one side, endowments and foundations on another side. In a general pitch, I'll say I work with both, but I always, whenever I'm going to someone specifically, I'll target the pitch. So I have, I guess, in my book, different ideal clients, and I'll pull out the right ideal depending on who I'm talking to. So using the hunting analogy, I'm not going to use an elephant rifle if I'm going for deer. I need
Absolutely.
If I'm gonna talk to someone who's $100 million client, I have to say these are the people I'm working with. Right. If I'm talking to a client that has $5 million with us, I'll say, we're looking for clients that look like you.
Exactly. Good point. So here's the ideal client profile again. If you want this document, just ping me and I will get it to you. So very specific prompting using LinkedIn, for example, powerful stuff on LinkedIn now. LinkedIn is just on fire, but I want to share one of the concerns. It is very, very noisy. LinkedIn has become very noisy. How many of you have been approached by people that want to connect with you to sell you stuff? All right. And the other is, how many of us have first degree connections we've never spoken to? Right. So there's opportunity this year to really look at LinkedIn and do very specific prompting, which is the reason why. Take a look at your LinkedIn contacts and connections. And if you have nothing in common and haven't spoken to them, why remain connected? Unless you're blasting them with marketing stuff, which is not really what LinkedIn is intended to do. LinkedIn is social networking. It's referrals on steroids if we use it the right way. So let's say I'm looking at, I'm looking at Tim Kennedy's LinkedIn profile, and I noticed that Tim Kennedy's connected to Bob Jones of ABC Company. And I see, and I said, look, that could be somebody I'd like to be introduced to. I'm going to ping Tim and say, hey, Tim, I was doing my LinkedIn thing and I noticed you're connected to, well, we'll call this Mary Smith at ABC Company. Hey, how well do you know her? That's it. And let's catch up. Now, let's say Tim and I haven't spoken in a couple of years. Two things just happened. I'm reconnecting with somebody. Top of mind goes up, all right, Toma. And what if he does know Mary very well? If all of us are collecting a lot of names on LinkedIn, his response may be, I don't really know her, all right, which kind of defeats the purpose. So in other words, for the people you are connected on LinkedIn, and maybe put it down as a to-do, is to look at your LinkedIn connections and say, hey, do I really need to be connected to this person anymore? Is it really serving me well? So what I want to have happen here, I want to reach out personally to arrange an intro, or I will write the email and send it to Tim so that he does not have the monkey on his back. 70% chance he will send it if I do it for him. As opposed to me saying, hey, Tim, would you please write an email for me? I want to meet Mary Smith at ABC Company. As opposed to me saying, hey, Tim, I noticed that you're connected to Mary Smith. How well do you know her? He responds and said, I know her pretty well. She was a client a number of years ago. Why do you ask? I was hoping that I could get an introduction from you. If I write the email and you approve of it, would you send it for me? Easy as that. So again, here are the types of referrals: cold, cool, warm, and hot. We don't want cold. We don't want cool. We want warm and hot. In other words, if a client makes a call or an introduction before we connect, that's great. and a direct interaction with the client and this other person is the best way of all. By the way, even if we were to do breakout groups right now, with 3 of us in a breakout room, suggestion for future meetings, by the way, is it is incredible how much is learned about each other and opportunities right there. And that is warm and hot. So if we can stay in the hot and warm zone, you've got between a 50 to 80% probability of success in those areas. So in other words, another thing I want to talk is don't try to sell me. That's my job. We have a lot of people doing referrals the wrong way, which is like, oh, you got to talk to Neil. Neil's awesome. He's like the most amazing guy. He knows everybody, right? We don't want to do that. We'll let Neil do that for him. So we just really want to, talk about, hey, I endorse him. I recommend him. Why don't I make the introduction? You can figure out for yourself. Not sure if you find value is another thing you can say. Let me know if you'd be open to a call. By the way, when that email is sent, it's important to reply all. There's a little bit of accountability that comes in there, right? In other words, let's say that Neil introduced me to Larry Schurer, right? And Neil writes, Rob, meet Larry, Larry, meet Rob. I think it's important. Rob owns a sales training practice. Larry has a law firm. And let's say that, Larry may be a prospect for me. And Neil says, I'll leave it up to 2 to connect. I hit reply all. Neil, thanks so much for the introduction. Larry, nice to meet you. If you're open to a quick call, here's a link you can click, set a date for a 20-minute intro conversation. All right. The likelihood of Larry responding is much higher because Neil is on that email. Make sense? Okay. So I'm up against 3 minutes to the hour, and I wanted to sort of get a sense of what might be some takeaways you got from this. I'm going to share my last screen, which is a rule that money does grow on trees. They're called referral trees. If you go back and look at clients that you've gotten over the last couple of years, chances are it's going to lead back several steps to someone or a firm that has generated a lot of money for your firm. And be sure to go back and water that referral tree. All right, so any quick takeaways you guys got?
I just want to add to that point you just made about going back to that tree. Once you've made an introduction and 2 people start working together, meeting this and that, always go back to the person who introduced you to say, hey, I met with so-and-so, keep them in the loop. If you don't keep them in the loop, you will not get any more referrals.
That's to your point, that's blooming where planted. That's blooming where planted. That's the seeds are planted and you just keep watering the tree. Thank you, celebrate the success and thank them and keep them in the loop makes them feel special.
Right.
Any other takeaways?
I liked about getting more specific when you're talking about what your partner referrals are, just to further trigger someone.
Absolutely. I had a marketing consultant in my office and I said, who are you looking to meet? She said, well, I do a lot of work in the security industry. Really? One of my clients sells insurance to the security industry. And guess what? Made them introduction and a lot of business was done. So yeah, to your point, it's a good one, Bill. Anybody else? All right, so let's try to avoid FTI, failure to implement. I know I threw a lot of stuff at you today. If you want to reach out to me, my email is rob.fishman@sandler.com. You can find me on LinkedIn. I'll just put it in the chat for my email address, and I'm happy to connect with you as well as that document you need help with for the document for referrals. In addition, for those of you that are not members of the LIAFPN, this board, I'm happy to be part of this group. This is a strong group and there's business to be done. So with that, I'm going to hand it back to Neil. Thank you, guys.
So thank you all for
Rob.
coming. We're going to have lots of future meetings. Again, we're going to keep it to a Zoom format until I guess April, until we see what's going on out there. The goals of this organization are to educate you, cross-educate you to what we do, positive networking and positive one-on-one introductions. So becoming a member allows you to be introduced to other members and other people and other opportunities and other business opportunities. And to join LIAFPN, we have a website. It's liafpn.org. Go on there, register online. We only take people who know people in the group. So you are vetted, and we only want quality people that are going to participate and be of like mind. And with that, I hope everybody has a great day and enjoys. And if anybody has any questions for me, I think everybody knows how to get a hold of me. But, you know, send
Thank
me
you,
an
Neil.
email.
Stay safe, everybody.
Bye,
Stay
everybody.
safe.
All right,
Have a
thank
good
you very
weekend,
much
everybody.
again.
Great job, Rob.
Thanks,
Thank you
Rob.
very much.
Fantastic.
Thanks
As always.
Rob, thank
Okay,
you.
everyone, have a great day.
Calling everybody.